Hello there and welcome to the Terrace Scottish Football Podcast. I am your host, Craig Gordon Telfer, and right now I am joined by my close associate, Shaughan McGuigan.
Hello there.
And you know what happens when the Chanel Hayes and Ziggy Lickman of the Terrace get together? That is right, we are going to meet in reality television. People will describe us as the Posh and Becks of Big Brother Series 8. One of us will walk because of multiple arguments with fellow contestants. The other will finish in fourth place. And we'll remain a couple for 6 months after the show before breaking up. And then we will reunite in an episode of Loose Women in 2020 and talk about some lower league Scottish football while we're there.
Is that the guy from Boys Will Be Boys?
No. That's Preston you're thinking of. Ziggy Lickman was the guy. Remember, Chanel looked a wee bit like Victoria Beckham, and Ziggy was a sort of this kind of like really thick-looking guy who had sort of like longish blonde hair.
I thought she was somebody who looked like Posh Boys, and then he was essentially they coupled up. I'm getting mixed up. Clearly,
you've confused just regular Big Brother with celebrity Big Brother. You made a huge mistake.
Something I do often.
Yes, you made a huge mistake here, and all that research for that introduction has gone to waste. There's nothing I like more than doing an introduction and seeing your head tilt back in a peal of laughter at some obscure reference that only about 5 or 6 people will get. But nevertheless, Shaughan, look it up. Chanel Hayes. I remember I think she was 19 at the time. He was 26, so obviously an age gap between them. But she was very immature for her age. Very immature.
That doesn't augur well, and I'm not surprised they didn't stay the course.
One of the reasons she walked, one of the other contestants in that show, do you remember, was it Charlie Uchia was her name? She was Kieran Richardson's cousin. Does that press any bells?
I remember that.
Yeah, she was genuinely not a nice person. She was really argumentative, really, and just the pair of them clashed, and I think that's what ultimately forced her out of the house.
And I have no doubt that this won't be the one, because I always get Big Brothers mixed up. But there was a Big Brother where on the first night, like, it was all women except one guy with blonde hair. And within a couple of hours, they were all starting to fall out. But I thought there might have been a slightly earlier one. But I did think that was the one that Charlie went into. But I could be getting mixed up.
I would need to go and check, Shaughan. I would need to go and check. I'll say this. The people who put the Wikipedia pages together for Big Brother, very, very thorough. Very, very thorough. No stone left unturned. No explanation left uncovered. They go into detail. You feel as though you have relived a season of Big Brother by going and reading those Wikipedia pages.
Remember somebody was putting together Wikipedia pages for A View from the Terrace. I've not checked it for a while, a long while actually, but it feels like that's stopped dead in its tracks.
Yes, I think so as well. They had done it up to a point, I think up to about season 5 or season 6, and it hadn't been updated since then. So I can't, I couldn't really say for certain. I'm just looking on Google. 67% liked this show. So there's 1/3 of the population who don't like the show.
What, A View from the Terrace or Big Brother?
A View from the Terrace. I've not checked Big Brother.
I'll take that.
Yeah, I think they've only done up to season 6.
That's okay.
Today, host Craig G. Telfer has appeared in all but one of the studio shows, brackets, A View from the Euros episode 3, due to a positive COVID-19 test. However, he did appear briefly via studio call. There we go.
That was very funny. We just closed the laptop and you were trying to make a point.
I've got one Wikipedia page. Somebody's made a Wikipedia page for me. Oh my goodness.
Is it accurate?
Wow, yeah, it is. It is, my goodness.
Who do you think has put this together?
Oh, I don't know. Oh, that's I'm sure that is ripe for deletion. I will say that. That is the kind of thing that is ripe for deletion, but my goodness. What a day. That's amazing. Right, enough Enough about this. I can't even believe it. Shaughan, you and I came on this podcast tonight and said, listen, let's get this wrapped up so we can get to bed. And there we go. We're 5 minutes in and we're just whooping at the fact that someone has put a Wikipedia page. They've even put my real job in there. So
are there any lies? Are there any kind of half-truths?
No, it's all bang on. It's absolutely bang on.
Who would know you enough to do that? I mean, I wouldn't know you enough to do that.
There's one mistake. They've got me born in Larbert. I was not. I'm actually born in Rutherglen.
There you go. Go. I'm sure we can edit that.
Yeah. So whoever from the Discord has put this this Wikipedia page together, please go back and check. Oh, I can say Craig Fowler's got one as well. So's Duncan McKay. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. There you go.
All the stars.
Craig Fowler, Duncan Mackay and Craig Gordon Telfer, all of Wikipedia pages.
Good. That's a three you would want. I think.
That's absolutely absurd. Bloody hell. There you go. Right, enough. There we go. We're 6 minutes into this podcast and we're just hooping. And there you go. I mean, Duncan's is longer than mine and Fowler's combined.
Yeah. Does it say anything about how much he loves reading? I hope so.
No, but there is a paragraph about the Albion Rovers debacle.
I mean, fair enough, but I would say his love of reading should be on his Wikipedia page more than the Albion Rovers farrago.
Oh, my goodness. Listen, Shaughan and I, we are going to be discussing the playoffs. We'll be discussing the first leg of the Premiership playoff semi-final, first leg between Partick Thistle and Livingston, and then we'll look at the playoff final first legs in the Championship and League One. We're recording this on Wednesday evening. The Cove Rangers Airdrie game has just finished. Our feelings are raw and uncompromised, and this is as close to a shoot podcast as you are likely to get. Before we begin, Shaughan, are you okay? Are you envious you don't have a Wikipedia page?
No, not at all. I'm very well. How are you?
Yeah, tremendous. I've enjoyed the football over the past couple of nights. I think one of the games is I put it in the top 10 games I've seen this season. The match between East Fife and Annan. Really looking forward to talk about that. Let's get these out of the way first.
Let's tell what I was going to say before we even get to that. It was your birthday this week.
Yes, that's what it was. I turned on Monday, so it was good.
And I think you took the day off to do stuff to celebrate your birthday.
Yes, I did. On Monday, I had a long lie. I had to edit a video. I've got into vlogging on YouTube. I was up till 3 a.m. on the first video, so I had a wee bit of a longer lie and the edits for that. Went out and got some brunch at the Wilson Street Pantry, and then went for a massage.
See, so that's interesting. See the first time, because I've never had a massage. I've never went for a kind of proper massage. See the first time you booked one. See the first time you went for one. Were you a wee bit worried that they thought you were a pervert? Because that's what kind of puts me off to a degree.
No, I think that one fleshy body, it's just another day in the office for them, isn't it? Like you just go in there with an open mind and just enjoy it. It's absolutely fantastic. I think I fell asleep on the table on Monday and woke up when she was doing this thing. She wraps a towel around your head and sort of does this, like almost turns her fist into a mallet and bangs your head, and that's what woke me up. But a tremendous experience. And then I went and sat out in the sun, had a couple of pints, and so very, very good way to turn 39 years old.
That sounds class. Many happy returns.
Thank you, mate. Going out to a pop concert tomorrow. Going out with friends and associates on Friday. Going out on Saturday. All go, mate.
What a busy week to celebrate your almost 40th.
Yes, aye. So I've got another 365 days before everything just slides into irrelevance.
It doesn't happen. Like, take it from me, it doesn't. That's not what happens.
No, I look at you, Shaughan, and you're full of vitality. That's why I look at you. You're perhaps the most virile person I know, and I think I want to bottle that. I want to bottle that. So in 363 days, we'll come back and we'll have a chat and you can give me some hints, tips and pointers. But we'll start the podcast. Finally start the podcast by looking at the Premiership playoff final, semi-final first leg, where Partick Thistle welcome Livingston to Firhill. And it's the Lions who have 1 foot, or paw, in the final after they won 2-0. Scott Pittman, thank you, got the first just before half-time, and Danny Wilson got the second just after half-time. Shaughan, give me your thoughts then on Partick Thistle 0, Livingston 2.
I mean, I don't want to rule Partick Thistle out. I absolutely won't. I thought they created a couple of chances, but I suppose over the last, whatever it is, 3 or 4 weeks, in terms of, like, we've spoken about Partick Thistle a lot, spoken about them against Falkirk, against Livingston in the league game a couple of weeks ago, and I suppose in both games against Airdrie. And I suppose all the things we've been talking about that's admirable is like resilience and digging in and backs to the wall and things like that. And it was only going to last so long. And as much as I thought they obviously created chances against Livingston, but Livingston were the better team, the fitter team, the stronger team, and all those good things that we've spoken about Partick Thistle in the last 2 or 3 weeks just weren't quite enough. I'd
probably agree with that. Yeah, I thought Thistle were maybe the more enterprising side in the first half, but it really seemed the game really swung on Pittman's goal. And I think in the second half, although Thistle did have Lee Ashcroft hit the bar, and Brian Graham had a really good chip. In fact, Brian Graham had 2 good chances. He had a header that he put over the bar, and he had that one right at the very end when he slid in and put it wide. I think beyond that, Livingston seemed quite comfortable, seemed in control, and I'd probably agree with a lot of the stuff that David Martindale was saying after the match, just in terms of he was really pleased, and I think it's probably not the most electrifying performance you're going to see a team turning all season, but you'd probably describe it as like a really professional performance, where everything goes in your favour, and you've really teed it up perfectly for the second leg back at Almondvale. Yeah,
I liked when Martindale said something along the lines of, essentially he was talking about how the playoffs work, and how the fact that the kind of Partick Thistle are essentially running on fumes. And he said, yeah, I feel for Brian, I feel for Mark, and I went, but not that much. but no, you're right. But you know what he said was absolutely spot on to as we normally say when it comes to Martindale and his post-game interviews.
Yeah, I also like the thing he was complaining about the refereeing decisions, and he said, like, I don't know if there's a memo that don't let Livingston back in the Premier League. I thought that was quite funny. There probably is actually a memo circulating that's saying that.
So it's funny that was the only point, and it might be over the course of the season, it's one of the few points where I thought that's rubbish for Martindale. Like, I didn't think that was it Don Robertson that was a manager? No, sure, the manager, the referee. Sorry. Yeah. I didn't think he got that much wrong.
There was nothing that stuck out for me.
Exactly. So for Martindale to kind of call it out and say, is there a memo about us not getting up? That felt a wee bit daft. But that aside, I thought, as usual, I thought what he said was decent.
Mm-hmm, yeah, I think in this game as well, if you remember on last week's podcast, there was a player's name who I couldn't remember. It was Macaulay Tate. That was whose name I couldn't remember. Who created who slotted in with that midfield three. And I thought in the match it was, although Thistle had some good chances, or they created some good openings. There's a bit where Brian Graham, it was actually I'd describe it as quite an audacious effort. He had the ball played in, it was Robbie Crawford played it into him. He tried to flick it into the net, let it go through and flick it into the net. It was quite an improvised finish. And there was a bit where there was a cross went into the box. I think it went past 3 people, all missed it. And it's an easy thing to say, but if you don't take your chances, then that's what happens. And it felt as though that Livingston were able to see that out quite comfortably. And then once they got to the game, that they weren't really going to relinquish that position. And the first goal, you could see Lee Ashcroft going off his head at Luke Macbeth and Caballo Megwa, because all of a sudden the pair of them seemed to be both drawn to the ball. And then Robbie Fraser, who's been turning a pretty really a pretty really useful player for Livingston. But he's just that he moves to the byline, and then because there's their man short, Ashcroft's got to go down and close them out, and that shifts everyone over, and then there's the Pittman's at the penalty spot to pass it into the net. And then of course there was the chance after where like Jamie Wilson tries to head it back to David Mitchell and misreads it. I think it's Montano has an effort to put it over the bar. But think from that first goal when Pittman scored, it was different. I know it was at the timing of the goal as well, just before the interval. It was 5 minutes to go before half time. It kind of felt that it would have been, given how knackered Thistle looked, they seemed dead on their feet on Friday night, the short turnaround for games. I couldn't really see them coming back into it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I suppose it's a wee bit where if you're Thistle, you come off the back of that win on Friday and you're elated and you know it's going to be a kind of tough ask against Livingston. However, the longer that game goes on and the longer you have something to hold on to, or you think you may be having something better than holding on to, maybe even taking the lead, then that gives you a wee bit of, I don't know, it gives you a boost, I suppose. But as soon as you got a goal down, then it just felt like that sucked a bit of the belief. And as much as there was a point at the second half where I thought Thistle were kind of doing okay, then they went 2-0 down, and then they kind of went for it in the last kind of 5 or 10 minutes, and maybe could have kind of reduced the arrears, but you've kind of alluded to it with the kind of sitter that Graham missed. That they just felt like there was something. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure there was necessarily So we spoke about the fact that we didn't think that Thistle would get through this tie, and I almost felt there was a wee bit about the Thistle team that maybe felt they couldn't quite get through it either. Yeah. But maybe I'm just reading too much into it. I don't know.
Going to explain that? How do you mean that Thistle maybe lacked the belief?
Just, certainly in terms of when they went 1-0 down, and obviously they didn't capitulate, because if a team capitulates and they go 2-0 down, they go 3-0 down. But I just felt there was a wee spell where, I don't know, where that maybe could have happened, and thankful for them it didn't. But I just never felt that they were going to get back in the tie, and I wasn't entirely sure that they felt they were going to get back in the tie.
No, I probably agree with you. I think as well, when you're a goal down and then you lose a second goal 5 minutes after the restart, it's a really, really good finish from Danny Wilson with his right foot as well. Good knockdown from Ryan McGuigan, and there's Wilson just to melt it, put the laces right through it, about 6 yards out, hits the underside of the bar and goes in. You think the combination, one, you're tired, and it's if you lose a goal just before half time, that completely changes the game. You've had your team talk, you come out, you lose such an early goal as well. Everything just feels like just such an uphill task. And on top of that, Livingston rested, relaxed. As Martindale said in his post-match interview, a good side, good football players. And that midfield combo, Pittman, Macaulay Tate, whose name I've just remembered there, and Stephen Kelly, I think they're players that want to get on the ball, players that can make things happen, players that can, I'm going to use Buck's Fizz again, players that can speed up, players that can slow it down there. And I think if you're struggling a bit, they're not necessarily the guys that you'd want to be coming up against. And then on top of that, going into the next leg, I think that there's a couple injuries or certainly players absent for Thistle. It just looks like they're really down to the bare bones. And I hope it's a competitive match on Friday night. I just think it's maybe a wee bit too far for them.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know Daniel O'Reilly came back on Friday night, but then Luke Macbeth went off. I think Ashcroft went off as well. It was interesting. And I must admit, I did fear for him a wee bit. So see, like there was a few comments about, great to see James Lowe. Great to see James Lowe starting again. He had such a good game on Friday. Great to see him back. I kind of worried a wee bit as well about that, because as much as I thought he played really well against United, I also thought he didn't really target him.
Yes, we said that.
It's what you would expect a team would, and I thought Livingston did, and I thought he struggled a bit. Yeah. He got a booking early on, and to be fair, he recovered for that. But I thought he struggled. But just in general, yes, I mean, you're not going to write Thistle off because of the last 4 or 5 results that they've had, but I do think that coming up against a Livingston team that have had a wee bit of rest, it's a a far bigger test than Ayr United, for example. So unless they get an early goal, or unless they, even if they keep it to 0-0 at half time, that gives them something to aim at in the second half. But I don't hold out too much hope for Thistle in the second leg.
Yeah, the point you made about Lowe was spot on. We said that on, was it Sunday morning last week, where if you're Scott Brown and you're looking at that team, you'd be like, listen, go and give him a hard time, go and shove him about a wee bit, go and let him know he's in a game. They didn't do that, and Lowe had a good performance for a debut, good performance. And this one here, though, I think you're up against guys like Lewis Smith and Stephen Kelly, and there were a number of times. I mean, the header was perhaps the most egregious error, but there was one thing, it was that he was trying to shepherd the ball out of play or something in the second half, and I think it was like Stephen Kelly was able to get the better of him. Yeah. Just a difficult evening. However, one that you hope that he learns from, he can use from. It doesn't affect his confidence. He can kick on and still contribute for Thistle.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, he's probably 2 performances ahead of where he expected to be this time 2 weeks ago. But it's a difficult place to perform when you're up against one of the better teams in the league. So fair play to him.
Yeah, on Brian Graham's miss, I'm just going through my notes there. I think that the issue why he missed it, I think it's a brilliant ball in from Logan Chalmers. I think that was something that Mark Wilson, the co-manager, said in his post-match interview. He said he was talking about how they didn't really have that much quality up until towards the end of the game. And that moment when Chalmers put that ball, it's a fantastic ball. It's one of those balls that's just begging for someone to get on the end of it. And the man that you would want to be slamming that into the net is Brian Graham, but Stevie Lawless slides in as well. And I don't know if Lawless puts him off. That's the impression I got, because it's very rare that Graham would miss a chance like that. I just felt as though that he's trying to adjust his body, or maybe he's expecting Lawless to get in ahead of him and takes his eye off it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it just makes him, whether it's delay or think, or overly think, just a fraction of a second, but it definitely put him off. And I suppose Graham's now had 2 tremendous seasons in front of goal, but it kind of felt like, and it wasn't quite as, maybe not quite as important as 12 months ago. Remember that miss at Starts Park?
Yeah.
When that would have put them into the finals. It was like, two supreme chances that would have made a massive difference in the playoffs. But regardless, I think you're right. There was a fraction of a second that made him take his eye off the ball.
I am not writing off Brian Graham. He said that himself after his post-match interview against Ayr United. He was talking about his numbers and he's got less than 10% body fat.
And is anybody writing off Brian Graham? I'm not entirely sure.
I just think it's the sort of thing where people say, this can't go on forever. Well, obviously it's not going to go on forever.
That's right. Like, it can't go on forever, but you can still, like that. I still think he'll have another good season in the Championship next time. So I'm not writing him off, but I also agree it can't go on forever.
See, if you were a vampire, football would be a good thing to get into, because if you're going to live for a long time, then you might as well have a hobby and be quite wealthy doing it.
Yeah, but you could only play midweek games after the Suns went down.
Well, listen, Dennis Bergkamp couldn't play overseas and he did all right out of it, so you just give the manager certain conditions.
So you can only play in the winter after maybe, so you can get brought on in the second half of a game from November onwards and play in midweek games.
I would just go and sign for a team in the Arctic Circle, like go and sign for Bodo Glimt or someone like that, dark all year round. Easy.
In fairness, would the Rovers have got more money, or they have got their money's worth out of a talented vampire or Lewis Vaughan?
One to ponder. one to ponder. We'll never know. One of football's real what-if moments. Yeah, how would Queen's Park have been promoted to the Premiership if they hadn't sold Simon Murray? Would Wraith Rovers win the Scottish Cup if Nosferatu had been playing up front for them? We'll never know. But Shaughan, we'll stick with Tuesday night's matches. And we'll move to the League One playoff final first leg. East Fife 3, Annan Athletic 2. A thoroughly entertaining game of football. Real rock and roll stuff. East Fife took a 2-goal lead through Alan Troughton and Andy Munro, and they appeared to be cruising. I think it was going to go on 3 or 4 at one point.
Yeah.
Until Mikey McKenna inexplicably hooked the ball into his own net just before half-time. And Aidan Smith scored not long after the restart to put Annan level. But with just 10 minutes remaining, Andy Munro put the Fifers back in front. And along the way, Annan were reduced to 9 men with red cards for Scott Hooper and Leighton Bisland. And Dick Campbell, what is he like? He was sent off after arguing with the referee, and John Young wore 2 pairs of glasses once again. Shaughan, give me your shoot thoughts on East Fife 3, Annan Athletic 2.
When I saw the starting lineups, I thought Annan were goosed. I thought, right, so no Tommy Goss, which he's been in lineups recently. I think he's maybe on the bench or certainly played in a match recently. But I must admit, I wasn't aware about the Willie Gibson suspension. I don't know if that's got something to do with Saturday's game, which was cut out of the highlights. They were disappointed that we couldn't see. Anyway, regardless, I thought Anna might have been in for a really tough evening, and I suppose they were. And when I went 2-0 down, as you say, I thought it could have been 3 or 4, and ultimately it could have been before that own goal. I think you have to credit Annan for that maybe 20 to 25 minute period. When they scored, they certainly got a spur. So maybe 15, 20 minutes after the interval, and they could have went maybe a goal up. But those 2 red cards had an impact not just on the evening, but on the tie as a whole, because Annan they've barely got a defender left.
See so talk about the 2 red cards. We will come on top of the goals. Scott Hooper's red card. Degree of understanding about that, because like Robert Jones is charging through and goal. Somebody, I can't remember who it was, somebody tries to have a wee bite at him and misses, and it's left to Hooper to try and get a foul and try and get his ball in the way. He doesn't manage it, and Jones has got Jones's touch takes him through and goal, and he's got a 1-on-1 with the goalkeeper there, and so I can understand Scott Hooper the red card there, because these things just happen. Leighton Bisland, however, you could see Tam Muir going fucking mental at him. You know, the bit where he's just been booked, he gets into, like, Jack Healy is a wee wind-up merchant. What are you getting involved for? Like, Jack Healy, like, sort of grabbing onto him, the pair of them go to the ground, and he's got him by the collar and shoving him just after you've been booked. Tam Muir goes over to him and is screaming at him like, what the fuck have you done? Willie Gibson, again, going by Willie Gibson's post-match interview, I think he couldn't wait to get into the dressing room so he could, or no, he said something like when he was allowed to go into the dressing room, so I'm going to assume that his suspension meant that he was prohibited from entering for a period.
So as far as I'm aware, I don't think as a manager, if you're suspended, you're allowed to enter the dressing room before, during or after, as far as I'm aware.
Right, but he was absolutely furious, and Bisland can fuck off. I was really angry with it, because as you said there, you've got an Annan team who are describe them as such a patchwork team, where you've got everyone's just having to fill in, no one's playing in their natural position, you're all having to fill in for the team. Hooper's off, and you can maybe say there's perhaps that's something noble about that, like that red card. Nothing noble about Bisland's getting involved in a fight with a wee fanny like Jack Healy, and it's like you could go that could cost the team. That could really cost the team, and that's why Muir was raging. I imagine that as soon as they got back into the change room, everyone would have been like, "You're a fucking idiot."
I suspect the answer is yes, but see, because obviously there was like Jack Keeley, you're right. He's a wind-up merchant. He's very good at getting under people's skin, and he kind of threw Bisland to the deck first. Bisland then reacted. I wasn't entirely sure if there was enough at that point to get a second booking, and I thought it was interesting that see when Muir came running over, and the two of them essentially went head to head, and Muir was essentially saying, "What on earth are you doing? You're already in a booking." Do you think that maybe made the referee's decision up? He was going to give him a second yellow? No.
No. I thought that you see it happen all the time where it's like a to use the term like handbags. When you see stuff like handbags, it's always, you just know that both players are going to get booked, regardless if one of them, if one of the players is the aggressor and the other one just like shoves them. Always seems to happen where the two players come together. And Muir has come over I think Muir is furious where that tie, and Annan had their chances in that tie. Even before they went, it was 2-0. They had a chance to equalise. Luca Ross had a shot that hit the post. There, I think Muir would have been absolutely aghast, thinking, "Listen, we can get them back to Galabank. A goal down isn't the worst thing in the world." But now it's a squad. I think they had 5 subs on the bench.
Yeah,
and Bisland, you know what? I'm not going to give the guy too much a kicking, man, because he'll, that sort of way where you've let yourself down as well as the team.
He'll be gutted as well.
Just stupid. That was the perhaps most animated I've been in front of the TV. Or in fact, the second most animated in front of the TV. Because we've talked about the red cards, can we talk about Robert Jones's impact in this game?
Incredible. See when those 3 substitutions were coming on, and I started guffawing. I was like, ha ha ha. Imagine Jones coming on in a key game for East Fife to get promoted. And yet, here we are. His introduction was central to East Fife winning the game.
So the run that led, we mentioned about Hooper's red card. I texted you and I compared it to Ronaldo scoring for Barcelona against Compostela in 1996, where he runs. I'll say this, and to be fair, after I texted you, I went back and watched Ronaldo's goal. I thought, actually, Ronaldo does a wee bit more than Robert Jones. But it's like Jones, the touch he takes to go between the defenders is superb, and just the pace to get away from them. I did not know he had that in his locker. And as we mentioned there, Hooper had no choice, no choice but to bring him down. And then Jones I can't remember who puts the cross in, but the cross in all the way to the back post, and there's Jones just to head it for Monroe to finish to win that match. Was it maybe McKenna's? McKenna's set pieces were excellent throughout this match. I've got to say that every time McKenna took a corner, you think this is going right on the money here. But fair play to Robert Jones. I think we had joked. I think this was after we came back for a view from the terrace. We were filling in the doc and putting ideas down for the episode. And I put down Robert Jones, and I changed my mind because I thought it was a wee bit cruel. I sounded like a wee bit of a fanny, but I said it like he's going to be the worst player ever to win a League Two title. And I think, well, no, fuck you, Craig, because this guy is this guy's just an honest, to God player. He does bring something different. He might not be the most refined player, but there he goes. He shut me up by coming on, and I was delighted for him. Absolutely delighted for him. I've said it loads of times in this podcast. If I write someone off and they prove me wrong, fantastic. That's brilliant. And certainly Robert Jones coming on and having such a huge impact in this game, delighted for him.
And what about East Fife? And in general, I thought this could have been will they be disappointed that it's only a 1-goal advantage? Because actually over the piece it could have been maybe another 1 or 2 more.
I mean, Nathan Austin could have had a hat-trick. His finishing was actually really crap in this game. For the number of times he was put into really good chances, really good opportunities, I thought his finishing was really poor. But yeah, I do think East Fife will be... I agreed with sort of Dick Campbell's post-match interview, how he saw the game, that they were absolutely cruising up until that the goal. Because, as we said there, they were having a lot of possession. Adam Laref, great fun to watch. Yeah. Really, really enjoyed it. There was a bit there where it was in the second half. He did a wee pirouette to go away from the player and put a really good ball in. Brilliant stuff. Him, Troughton and Austin were Austin's finishing was a wee bit wayward, but just there was period, I think, when they were 2-0 up, Annan looked overwhelmed in that bit. And then just it's kind of similar to what we're saying with that Thistle game, where it takes a goal at a funny period just to kind of have a balloon pop. And Campbell defended it, but he said Mikey McKenna's done an 80-yard run from the attack, from the opposition half into the box, and just And I do appreciate his effort, but it was such a bizarre goal. It really came out of nowhere. Because Annan did have a chance. We mentioned there about Muir heading over the bar and Luca Ross hitting the post. But after that, I just think, how many goals is Fife going to score? And then all of a sudden, oh wow, that's I didn't expect to see that.
It's funny with Dick Campbell, because he, we spoke about this against Edinburgh, so he kind of he singled out. Well, you can't single out a few players, I suppose, but he named a few players. But he certainly talked about Laref in terms of his being at fault for the goal, for example. Nathan Austin, he thought missed a couple of sitters against Edinburgh, which again I didn't think was necessarily the case. Anyway, he very much stuck up for
McKenna.
But even when he scored the own goal, he was sticking up for them. I was like, it really does feel that McKenna is perhaps one of your favourites. But I suppose regardless, McKenna had 2 assists on the day, so I don't know, fair play, I suppose.
Yeah, and then just you're thinking, well, that's interesting. This is giving the game a different bit of colour. And then 3 minutes after the restart, there's Aidan Smith, the Tiger King, gets a goal. It's a good ball into the box. I think Hooper flicks on, and it just sort of takes 2 flicks and goes into the net. And so they did well. There was a bit as well where Tam Muir rounded the goalkeeper and just had a fresh air swipe at it. I mean, there's a player who's really coming into a bit of form. Muir, I thought he had a good game for them, but then I just think they weren't able to build on that head of steam they got. They started that second half really, really well, and then we talked about the substitutions coming on. Jones goes on the run, Hooper brings him down, and then that took the sting out of it from Annan's perspective. So it's the ties and the balance is by no means done and dusted. However, based on Annan's low numbers, the inability to change things, just having to put players out in the park regardless of if it's where they should be playing, it's difficult to see beyond East Fife. Yeah,
I mean, presumably Muir will have to go back to centre half and in the back four. And see if Tommy Goss is available, then that gives him, that just improves Annan. But without him, I think East Fife might win quite comfortably.
Yeah, I think so. I hope it's a funny one. I quite like East Fife. I like East Fife as a team, and always when we were there back in December for the hospitality with Scott Young and the poor Liam Newton. That was that was class, and having got into to see the club, and I had a really good time. So I hope they do well because there's good people there. However, as a fan of a club that's going to be playing in League One next season, I know where I'd rather be watching my football, and it'd probably be at Gallowbank rather than Bayview. Methil, yes. What about Dick Campbell's red card?
I actually didn't see what he got sent off for. They seemed to say that he just threw his bonnet to the floor and then stepped across the threshold of the dugout. I find that hard to believe.
Yeah,
but if what he said is true, then it was harsh.
In his post-match interview, there was a jump cut, so I think he might have said something, and they thought, better take that out.
I noticed that as well. I was like, "Oh, what have you said there? Something that you shouldn't have."
That's what I thought. And Gibson, his post-match interview, he just said some boys have let themselves and the club down badly, and I don't think he's talking about Scott Hooper there, but I think he was perhaps talking about Leighton Bislin. So
he's always very downbeat though, isn't he, Willie Gibson?
Yeah,
even on a good day, he's downbeat.
Yeah, that's just, who knows? He might be a good laugh. Probably not. Probably not. Aye, but I'd fancy East Fife to progress. And so we'll finish up this podcast by talking about the match that concluded just about 45 minutes or so ago. That is the Championship playoff final first leg between Cove Rangers and Airdrieonians at Balmoral Park. Dylan McDonald opened the scoring for the Diamonds with a header, and although Lewis McGrattan's own goal levelled the match, Lewis Strapp scored a really nice strike midway through the second half to put his side ahead. So Airdrie have a 1-goal lead going into Saturday night's game at the Excelsior. Shaughan, thoughts on Cove Rangers 1, Airdrieonians 2?
I was reasonably surprised at how even it was.
Yeah,
I know we'd suggested that Cove had players that could harm this Airdrie team, and I suppose the fact they didn't have Hancock, for example, maybe hampers them. But by the same token, Cove didn't have Adam Emsley, for example, which had a massive impact on them. But it felt like a kind of decent contest. But I suppose the problem was, as much as Cove had possession, and I never really felt they were going to score unless, like, maybe they had another set piece. Like, I know they scored from a set piece. I kind of felt like that kind of game. And I feel like they maybe didn't take advantage of the fact that over the piece, there wasn't too much between the teams on the night, I suppose.
Yeah, I actually thought Cove were really good, particularly for about the first 15 minutes of the second half. There was a lot of pressure on Airdrie, and I've got to say, I'm not really sure about Cade Melrose in the Airdrie goal. It doesn't necessarily fill me with much confidence. I think there's stuff that he can do that's quite good, but when it just comes to, commanding his area and stuff, I'm not 100% sure. And I think that fed into sort of my kind of fears about the Airdrie defence, and I think that allowed Cove to maybe play in the front foot a bit. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I understand where you're coming from. I suppose he came in at a difficult time. Did he come in maybe after they lost to Falkirk at home? Might have been 3-0, and Kieran Wright had a very, very difficult evening. And I think Melrose maybe came in for the game after that. And what I would say is, for somebody who's, whatever he is, 16, 17, I think he does very well. And then maybe even the Airdrie defence have a wee bit more faith in him than they do Kieran Wright, which I suppose helps the team in general. But I totally agree. If you're able to put him under a wee bit of pressure, I'd be interested to see how he deals with it.
So I don't want to be too critical. I mean, I do appreciate he's a young guy. I'm just thinking, like, from the just
no, totally.
I think sometimes just because you're a young player doesn't necessarily mean you're immune from criticism. I think he's a player who's obviously got a lot of potential, and he can play a bit of football. I think his distribution's quite good, and he is quite a good shot stopper as well, and something who's only going to get better and will have a future in the game. However, just right here and now, I just don't think he gives them Airdrie the command that they're looking for in the area. And I think because of that allowed Cove to play in the front foot. I thought Declan Glass in particular had quite a good game. I think a lot of the stuff that he was getting involved in, I was quite excited with. But it's the goal to put Airdrie in front, really, really nice. I thought that Ben Wilson's hold-up play, or certainly just the delaying of that pass when he got down inside and the defender stood them up, and he just delays it, passes it to Strap, and then Strap with his right foot as well, just sort of guides it into the net.
Yeah.
Like, you know that way when you open a door for someone and you just kind of use your hand to sort of usher them through? That's effectively what he did with that football.
No, but like Wilson's had quite an interesting season, because he's one of those signings where I think we might have mentioned them at the kind of season preview, where they really enjoyed themselves in the kind of the League Cup group section. Then didn't they really do much at all? And I know he's come from, it was Northern Ireland. It's not as if he's come from abroad. But you're still, maybe you're away from family and friends or what have you, or maybe just Airdrie played a wee bit more to his attributes. But certainly I would say from, I don't know, maybe December, January onwards, he certainly looked like a decent forward at this level, and not just because maybe we felt he was nothing more than a goal scorer in kind of July or August. But actually there's a lot more to his game than that, and I suppose you showed that with that assist. Yeah,
I like what I've seen. He was good in the semi-finals against Stennismuir, scored in the second leg there. Took a bit of deflection, but the build-up play for it was good. The running and the shifting the ball onto his other foot, that was all very impressive. But I thought that the bit I was most disappointed about was Adam Frizzell hitting the post with that shot. That had been a goal of the season contender. Yeah. Like the dribble that he went on and hitting the ball, I think it was outside of his left foot, and it just bent onto the post. Oh my goodness, had that gone in, I think that would have been one contender for goal of the season, but two, not saying killed the tie, but certainly put Airdrie into a very favourable position.
Yeah, I think it would have killed the tie. But I suppose, like, when it comes to Airdrie and Cove Rangers, like, both the best elements of the side is the middle of the park, which is why I still think that maybe Cove could get the better of them. But I would be surprised. But again, I wouldn't rule Cove out.
No, I thought Fraser Five had a good game. It was good to see him back in the team, and he just brings him so much. You could just tell that there was a bit as well when he went on a really good run, and you're just thinking, God, what are you doing at this level, mate? What are you doing? You should still be playing for Aberdeen or whatever. But I do appreciate injuries have taken the toll. I'm just such a gifted, classy football player for this level. And I thought he played well. I thought Blair Ewell had a good game as well. He was involved in a lot of good stuff. I think there was concerns about Mitch Megginson. I think he took a bit of a sore one at the own goal. I think it was his certainly challenge for the ball, and it seemed to hit off McGrattan's back with a fair degree of misfortune with that. But I think that Megginson gives him so much up front, not just in terms of his prowess in front of goal, but just his all-round game. And I think if they didn't have that, they'd be severely handicapped going into this.
They could probably do with somebody a wee bit closer to him, though. Like you're right, like Five is a good player in terms of Miller Park. So is Blair Ewell. I don't know if either of them get close enough to Megginson to make the most of his attributes, I suppose.
Just trying to think if there's anything else to say from this game. It wasn't. I thought it was it started off, there was quite a bright sun right across the pitch. It took a wee while to figure out actually who scored for Airdrie because of it. And they mentioned it a couple of times in commentary, but the pitch did look quite sticky. I think you could even see it looked quite sticky. Some of the balls took a couple of awkward bounces. People weren't sure where it was going to go.
Yeah, presumably that's by design, though. I mean, like, I know, like, when Wraith have a home game, they obviously have a plastic park, but they water the side of the park that they're attacking, so it's a bit slicker. But don't water the other side. But you're right. You almost felt like Cove weren't watering either side, which is surely to their disadvantage.
I'm just trying to think. Do Cove have the ability to water their pitch?
I don't know. Possibly not.
I don't know. I've not been to Balmoral Stadium. I didn't get the opportunity to go this season. But hey, listen, I might have the opportunity to go next season. Heard great things.
I've been. I wouldn't say it was great. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but I wouldn't say it was great. Good social club. I will say that about it.
Okay, excellent. Well, I've heard great things about it. Then I won't slag the place off until I've actually visited the social club. But I suppose, Shaughan, for the return leg it's the late kick-off on Saturday. Who are we going for?
I think Airdrie have done enough. I think they'll win, not comfortably, but I can see them seeing this out reasonably comfortably. 2 or 3, 3 or 4-1 on aggregate.
I'm going for 2-1 for this one. I think it's going to be a similar game.
Yeah.
I can actually basically see it just being a carbon copy of this. So I think we'll probably leave it at that then. Shaughan, we are going to be back. We're doing 2 podcasts over the weekend. One on Saturday morning, talking about the Livingston Thistle match and the Annan East Fife match. And then we'll be doing one on Sunday morning, talking about the Airdrie Cove Rangers match and the Bonnyrigg East Kilbride game.
Class.
So, are you going to it?
No, I'm not going to it. Are you?
No, I wasn't. I'm going to. I think the thing is with YouTube, you need to be doing stuff consistently. So I can't go to games as a laugh anymore. I'm going to have to go to Les Mahago Juniors versus St Anthony's in the West of Scotland Second Division.
Well, of course you do. Of course you do. But looking forward to the vlog.
Thank you. It's great. I love doing them. It's great fun. It's unfortunate that this is a busy time for us, with the playoffs, and there's part of me wishes, what if you weren't doing this and you could just go and make vlogs everywhere, but no, I can't. I could never abandon the SPFL, Lower League Scottish Football. That's very much it's in the bones. But nevertheless, Shaughan, I think we'll leave it at that.
No worries. Thank you.
Excellent. No, thank you. And dear listener, thank you for listening, and thank you for your continued support of this podcast. If you do want to get your checkbook out, please do so by going to patreon.com/terrace podcast. There's some really good stuff in there. And it's a good podcast. I really enjoyed it with Gary Cocker and Graham Thewlis talking about the TV deal, which is very interesting. So some really interesting insight and opinions into it. It's something I don't understand why people get so fraught over the TV deal, but hey, listen, some people do. But if you are going to a game this weekend, enjoy your football, but unlike Leighton Bisland, assaulting Jack Healy like that, please do so respectfully. Thank you.